Hey, welcome to today's episode of Scrolling to Death. I am Nicki,
I'm Ashley.
and today we're going to talk about posting your kids on social media. So, sharing your kids with your community is not new, right? As far back as we can document, parents have been swapping stories with friends in their communities and sometimes public sources. Like just a generation ago, you would announce your child's birth maybe in the newspaper. So, this is not a new thing that we're doing here, but with the advent of the internet, we now have a reach that was really unfathomable just one generation ago. We've gained access to basically anything we want at any time. We can share whatever we want at any time. And one thing that we have given up, and the thing that we maybe don't value as much as we used to, is privacy. And so we're going to talk about privacy a lot in this episode. So Ashley and I jumped on social media right when we were about 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
When Facebook started within our colleges. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. I think it was a freshman year. It was a MySpace. Do you remember decorating your MySpace profile?
I do, and remember, didn't we have a song we could choose or something? Was there like
I think so. I think so. I think we did have a song we can choose, and then like you can make it a collage on your. I remember the photo collage that you can make really cool.
Was there like a top friends? Do you remember that where we would like choose our top 5 friends? How
I think there was like a 3 or 6 top friends you could have in the box.
And it would
Wasn't
be
it like a box?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And you could like rank them, huh? So you could know who's, if you had an issue with a friend, like you can just knock them down on the rankage, like they were number 1 and now they're number 3.
Seems so okay then and not okay now.
Yeah, right.
So we were really the last generation. We turned 18 and all these social media sites came. So we were the last generation to have a fully private childhood. Like there was no opportunity for our parents to share us online in a meaningful way. Like, did your parents do like photo books?
Actually, no. My parents barely took pictures. They didn't. I don't really remember them having a camera or bringing the camera out. My husband and his family were very camera oriented people. They always had a camera. They always took pictures. I do remember probably my end of my high school and college, they did buy me a camera to start taking pictures. And I think it's, also geared towards the whole MySpace thing that I could post my pictures on my profile.
Totally.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So my mom did the photo books. I have them now in a box in my garage, and sometimes I get them out. I show them to my kids, and they're really special to me. My parents also got that big video camera that you had to put on your shoulder and took videos of soccer games and plays and birthday parties. And so we have several, they used to be VHS. Now we converted them to DVDs that we can watch, which is really cool. And that was really the only option for documenting your children's life just before our generation, right?
Yeah.
So when we started having kids around 2015, it was all in on social media, right? And I remember being really excited to share my pregnancy and my kids on social media. Like that instant gratification felt really good. Like, do you remember that feeling?
Oh, totally. And I remember too having, and I still actually just deleted these apps a couple days ago when I was looking at my phone just to clean up my phone. But I remember the stickers, the baby stickers you could put on the pictures. And that's what I was like, oh, I'm going to get the best picture and have these like really cute stickers of like, 21 pounds. And it was like a cool graphic you can put on the picture. I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
When posting.
And, now doing all this research I've done, I understand that I was getting a dopamine hit like within my brain each time I posted a photo of my kid. And there was an addiction happening there, similar to when someone drinks alcohol or smokes a cigarette. Like it was all connected to my brain. And, we're going to go into the brain more in other episodes. We already have. You can look back at those. But parents were really sharing so much that they gave it a name and they called it sharenting. So, yeah, so sharenting is a relatively new term. You may or may not have heard of it. It's describing parents really oversharing their children's intimate lives online. So, I want to share some stats around sharenting. Almost all kids, so 92% of kids, have a presence online by the age of 2. And most parents share nearly 1,200 images of their child by their 5th birthday. And I would bet some way more than that. So because you start with, your ultrasound scan, the photos in the hospital, now with Instagram stories.
Pregnancy
back to
pictures.
pregnancy. Absolutely. So by the time a kid is 18, there's an average of 70,000 pieces of information available about them online.
Wow.
Most of which they did not share themselves. So we talked about our childhood being protected, like i.e. not online. And when we became adults, we got to choose what we wanted to share, right?
Yeah.
Now, this type of sharenting that's happening is unprecedented, and it can make it hard to understand. Is it okay? Is it not? Is it good? Is it bad? And so what we want to share today are some of the dangers around oversharing your kids online.
I think you bring up a really good point, Nicki, is, a lot of people share their kids online, and I did it. I was sharing my kids' newborn pictures, first birthdays, all the months, right? I shared every single month. Again, with a cute little graphic. And, I remember spending, an hour a day trying to, have a cute outfit and a cute pose. And, because you look on social media and you look at with all your friends, everyone's doing it. So you almost get this sense that it's okay. If everyone's doing it, it must be okay, or it must be just the thing you do. And also too is, during that time I was on my maternity leave and I was at home, and there was almost a piece where I felt like, well, I mean, I feel like I'm supposed to do this, right? I'm supposed to share my kids and how they're doing and all that, because I'm not seeing them, and we're just kind of, bundled here at home trying to get through these like crazy first 3 months. And this is my way of like, yeah, guys, we're still alive, like we're still looking good here, like
Totally.
we're okay here. So I get it. I think you bring up such a good point that everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
I did it. You did it. We all did it.
Yeah. And that's a great point. Like, just because everyone is doing it, is it okay? And there's research coming out now and backing where I want to share this with you within this episode of why I think it's not okay. That's my opinion. And I think once you hear some of these things, you may second guess your decisions around sharing your children on social media as well. Now, I want to paint a picture for you. So I was trying to think, like, what's the offline equivalent of sharing your kids on social media, right? So, like, how can we think about this differently? So imagine you print out 1,000 photos of your child, and on the back of each of the photos is a list of their interests, their birthday, what sports and activities they like, where their school is, their pets' names, their home address, their siblings' names, their parents' names, basically all the personal information you can think of. And then you take these documents and you walk around town and you just hand them to strangers. Like, would you do that?
When you describe that, like just like that, absolutely not.
Right.
Or me, even, I even think a step further. I'm handing them out, or someone is handing them out, right? If it's me or someone else, and then I'm walking on the street and I see a picture of my kid on the ground with all of the information. I'm like, well, how did this get here? Like, what's going on? This is kind of scary.
Because once it's out there, you've lost all control of it. But this sounds like a ridiculous thing to do, but that is essentially what you are doing by sharing your kids online. Even if your profile is private, it's still getting in the hands of strangers. I'll talk more about that a little later in the episode. But and when you think about this scenario, this ridiculous scenario of you handing out pictures and information of your child to strangers, what are most people going to do with that? Like, most people will do nothing. They'll throw it away or ignore it. But some people will see it as an opportunity. They'll want to use this photo and this information to their benefit. There just are bad people in the world who do bad things with your child's information. And like, are you
An image
and their image, and like,
an image
are you willing to risk something bad happening to your child? So it's just a different way to think about it. I think it's interesting. Obviously, in this scenario, everyone would say, no, I would definitely not do that. But I want you to consider the similarities of what you're doing when you're sharing your kid online, and all of this personal information that's associated with those pictures, videos, and captions that you're putting out.
Let me ask you this, Nicki, like, even if it's someone that knows that, maybe someone who's like, yeah, there's mostly good people out there, and there's only like maybe a couple bad people, and they could use this information. Why do you think then they continue to share? What do you think that's about?
So I think the main things that people are thinking, is, that's not going to happen to my kid or me. And when we share these statistics with you that we're going to go through, I think you may change your tune. Or they might also think my profile is private and, no one's going to get access to these. Now, and I've shared this on another episode, but it's worth repeating. Photos and videos posted to your private accounts aren't that private. They can be accessed and downloaded and distributed by anyone that has a rudimentary understanding of HTML. So like a hacker can get access to them so easy, even Instagram stories after they've expired. So anything that you click post on any platform is online forever, available to anyone to download.
I think too, even just kind of my own thought process and what kind of happened to me and how I thought about it as well is, one, I thought like, this can't happen to me. Like, this can't happen to me or my kids. And almost a sense of like, no, that can't really happen. Like, maybe, I'm not sure, but like probably not, just because it just sounds so scary and so uncomfortable and so like, really, like, there are people that can do such an awful thing and, take the private information and take, utilize images of kids in inappropriate ways. And I think it was so hard for my brain to go there, it was just like, oh, that's not good. I don't like that. And I think that is kind of where my brain went, where my thought process is, no, that can't happen. That's too bad. Or that just won't ever happen to me. So that's something I won't ever worry about because no one is sharing it. No one's talking about it. Right. Yeah. And then the other thing is like, well, everyone is still doing it. Then again, it must be right. Then it must not happen. Right. Yeah. So I think too, that just me kind of, that was the thought process. Cause I think I definitely knew of some issues to happen, and that was almost the way that I conceptualized it in my head to keep posting pictures of my kids.
Sure. And so let's talk about it and let's get these, what are the bad things that can happen so that you understand. All parents need to listen to this. It's so important. You need to listen to what could happen and then make your own decision. But don't ignore these things. They are happening, and these stats and the rate at which these things are happening are going way up. So let's go through a few things that could happen. Okay.
Let's do that.
So number one, there are privacy and security risks. So there's something called digital kidnapping. Okay. It's a type of identity theft that happens online. And what happens is a person saves a picture of your child from your social media post. They put it back online with a new name and identity and claim the child is theirs. Every year, there are more and more reports of this happening. Over 1 million children are victims of this type of identity theft each year, and half of these are under 6 years old. So these 6 years old aren't sharing photos of themselves. It's being stolen from their parents' profiles. Very soon, it's reported that sharenting will account for 2/3 of all of this type of identity fraud. So I want to share an actual story of digital kidnapping because I think it's important for you to hear how easily this could happen. Okay.
Right.
So Meredith Steele was 35 years old, living in Maine. She's a mom of two. In 2021, she was out at a restaurant celebrating her child's preschool graduation. She took a photo of her family and she posted it on Instagram and tagged the location. A family friend happened to work at the same restaurant and noticed that there were two photos of Meredith's family that were tagged at the location that night. One was Meredith's photo from her Instagram, and the other was the same photo but posted by someone else. So a stranger had stolen Meredith's photo and about 30 other of her photos, set up a separate account with their own fictional family, and this account had thousands of followers, all with Meredith's photos plus different captions that they had made up on their own. So Meredith reported the fake account immediately, but Instagram did nothing. So the best Meredith could do was block the fake account and change her habits. She now does not post her children on social media. She's quoted as saying, "I learned the hard way. It might sound dramatic until it's your kids."
Right.
So she went back and removed her children's faces from all her old photos. She only tags her location after she leaves somewhere. And she's not allowing her children to have social media accounts. She also doesn't grant permission for school and summer camps to take photos of her kids. She encourages other parents to rethink sharing their kids' photos online. And she says, "These little kids can't consent to be on that level of exposure, and you will never see my kids' faces on social media again."
I love your quote, what you said, like what she said was, it sounds dramatic until it happens to your kid.
Correct.
And that's exactly the mind frame.
Yep.
I think all of us parents that are even listening to right now is, oh, that sounds dramatic, or that can't happen until it happens to your child.
Yeah. And you're the odd one out. I told the school I did not sign that form that says that the kids can be in photos that are shared on social media. Guess what? When my son's kindergarten class all gets together to take a photo, he's pulled out of the photo and he's the only one that's pulled out. Everyone else is completely fine with their kid being shared online. So it's not being talked about, it's not being understood, and that's why we're having this conversation right now. People need to just understand the dangers and then make your own decision once you know. Okay.
I think too is you bring up a really good point that maybe we can continue discussing, is being that odd man out and being that one that like decides to stop sharing or delete the pictures of their kids on social media, because that's just not how the world is going towards right now, right?
And I remember once I decided to delete Instagram, I had one or two people in my life that thought it was really weird. Like, why would I do that? What, am I better than everyone? Like, absolutely not. I just think a little bit differently. I've done a lot of research on this, and this is where I've landed. Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about a digital identity. So what is a digital identity? So a digital identity is an online representation of a person that includes unique identifying information and personal details. So it's basically the information and data that identifies a person in the digital world. And as adults, we all have a digital identity. We have our email address. We have all our activity on social media from the past however many years. We have, our old jobs, or might be on different websites for different things that we've done. That all makes up what a digital identity is for you. And we, again, had the opportunity to create our own digital identity, right? Like no one else had a say in who we were online.
Right.
We got to create that on our own terms. And by creating digital identities for our children, we are robbing them of that experience that they can have on their own. We're deciding who they are online for them.
That is such a great point, Nikki. And that was the main point that I decided almost a year ago to stop sharing, was definitely the dangers and the privacy. But the big piece too for me was I had to think like, okay, 10, 15 years from now, my kids are going to find these photos online. And is this going to be is this going to be the representation? Is this going to be the identity that they wanted, right? They weren't choosing that at all. I was choosing that. And then what if they would have been like, hey, all these photos of me are on there. I didn't say yes to that.
I know. And we typically only share positive aspects of our kid. And that gives a lot of pressure on them to live up to this idealized version that we created of them. Also, it may contradict, like what we create for them as their digital identity may contradict what they want to cultivate for themselves. It just may not line up.
Oh, for sure. And especially too, I think you bring a good point is like most parents aren't going to be sharing, bad or hard or painful things in their teens' lives on social media, right? So if they're only posting good things and accomplishments, well, what message is that to your teen, right?
Right.
Is that basically your teen is saying, or sorry, basically your teenager is thinking, oh, my parents only want to display and show everyone the good things, my accomplishments. Right. They're not going, maybe the bad things are hidden in secrets, right?
I'm not saying we should be posting the bad things either, because it's embarrassing. We're going to talk about embarrassment. But they often, these younger kids, they're not old enough to consent either. And we're going to talk about consent. Like, well, let's get to that in a minute. But I want to also talk about this. When you share your kids online, right? We're creating this. We're creating this digital identity for them, and we're actually gifting it to the tech companies. So I want to paint another picture for you. Okay, so and imagine again. Imagine you grab a briefcase. Who has a briefcase? I don't know, maybe a backpack. Okay. Again, you print out thousands of photos of your child, all their personal information that we talked about before. You tuck it all in your backpack, let's say. You throw it on your back and you head over to Meta headquarters in Menlo Park and you knock on their door and you say, here you go. All this now belongs to you. You can use my child's photos and information however you would like. You have my permission to target my child with ads and manipulate their decisions based on this information. Like, would you do that?
No,
crazy.
No, absolutely not.
You're literally doing that when you're just giving away your children's information, photos, sweet videos that just should be private to the tech companies. They own them now. And I might even go as far as to say the tech companies now own your kid.
People don't see it like that, Nikki. Like they don't see it like that. They don't see it as they just walk up to the tech companies and like, here you go. Here are all the special videos and all the special photos and just everything, all my kid's identity. Here you are. And they don't see it like that. And I want to say one thing I think is because the platforms look so inviting and friendly and this is a place for you to connect and socialize with other people and for other people to still stay in your life. And they just make it like this image, right? This image that we all play into, right? When really that's exactly how, Nikki, that's exactly what we're doing is we're just walking up and saying, here you go, tech companies, here is all my kids' information. Here's all their images. Here's all their videos and everything.
And remember too, a great point is if you delete stuff on your Facebook, it still exists on their server. They still own it. It never, ever goes away. They can use it for your child's whole life. Okay. So think about these things before you click post next time. Okay. So let's move to the emotional effects of sharing your children online. Now, the emotions that they may feel. Now, children of moms and dads who have sharented are getting older, and we're able to talk to them about how it makes them feel. And we're finding that kids often view these posts as an invasion of their privacy, and they feel embarrassed. There's a study recently of adolescents who said that they find sharenting to be embarrassing and useless.
Yeah, a lot of the teenagers that I work with, again, teenage years are struggling with their identity. They're insecure about their physical features and their changes with their body, and they're struggling with their confidence. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they're all learning that, right? And so any parent, I mean, any picture of my kid is going to be a great picture, right? I'm
Sure.
biased. I think all my kids, my three kids are super beautiful and gorgeous. And I love them. So any side, any
Angle.
picture of,
Yeah.
any picture of them, any angle is going to look fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
But for a teenager, it can be really stressful. It can
Mm-hmm.
be really overwhelming. They're figuring out what side they like,
Mm-hmm.
what side they don't like. I remember as a teen, young adult, I'm like, oh, this is my side, right?
Mm.
It was
Oh.
like the right side, the hip is popped, right? The leg is back,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
The hair, one side is down, the other is back, right? And it was just like that was where I felt like I took a good picture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, think about that. Like parents are posting pictures because of course they love every angle and every facet of the picture. But it could be embarrassing to
Mm-hmm.
their teenager. It could be where their teenager doesn't like it, and it highlights an insecurity for them.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just frustrated, like, hey, why didn't you ask for my permission with that?
Yeah.
And they're also too at a stage where they're wondering, like, well, shouldn't I consent to that, or
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't you like notify me or say, hey, do you like this picture at least so I can
Yeah.
post it?
And let me say something on embarrassment. So, like, are we okay embarrassing our children? Like, if there's a chance that it's going to be embarrassing to our kid, like, are we cool with that? There was a trending TikTok challenge recently, or I don't know if it's a challenge, but where the parents were getting on video with their kids and they're going to cook an egg, I guess, and then they crack it on their kid's head and then they all laugh and like these kids start crying or they're embarrassed or shocked, like, and at the expense of the embarrassment of our child for some views on TikTok. Is that what we're prioritizing here?
Like, what is that? Like, why are we doing that?
I
That seems so ridiculous to me. But I mean, posting videos to get our kids to cry, or to make it a laughable moment for others, but then we're disregarding how our kid might feel.
And I remember, do you remember Jimmy Kimmel used to have a segment during Halloween? And I used to think it was so funny. Parents the next morning after Halloween would say, "Oh my gosh, I ate all of your Halloween candy," and the kids would
Yes,
cry.
yes.
And I remember actually really, really laughing and enjoying those. I see it
Hmm.
differently now. Your opinions can change, and how you view things can
Sure.
change based on where you're at in your life, And I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that to my kid. I definitely wouldn't put my kid on camera and crack an egg on their head for other people's enjoyment. I'm not even putting my kids on camera at all because I'm respecting their privacy. Um,
I'm sorry. Like, I'm just sort of like, can we just be adults here? Like, what is that? I don't
we're
know.
supposed to be the safe space for our kids, not embarrassing them on purpose, let
Well, and then
alone.
too, like think about like 10 years from now, they're gonna find that video,
I
and then
know.
what they're gonna be like, Mom, Dad, why'd you do that? Like,
Yeah, we can't be
I don't know.
breaking our kids' trust like that. It's so wrong. Um, but I also want to bring up cyberbullying. So there is data around cyberbullying related to sharenting. So parents need to be concerned about how people can judge their kids based on what they're seeing online. So other kids can use the information that you share. So their friends can take the photos that you share and mock them over them, insult, and even bully your child now or when they get older. So know about that risk too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because again, like if parents aren't necessarily aware and they're just posting because it's like a great family photo, or it's a super funny moment,
Mm-hmm.
or it was silly, or a silly photo, then it could really leave grounds for someone else to grab that
Mm-hmm.
photo and be used against the teenager,
Yeah.
for sure.
So let's talk about getting permission now. So Many children that are getting older now that have been sharented are saying they wish their parents would have asked permission before publishing their photos. They want to be seen and heard and respected and involved in these discussions. So, like, I know it depends on the family, but like, what age should we be asking their permission? Like, can we throw out a general age?
Uh,
That's
that's a good
tough one. I
question.
know. It's like, I know it depends on the kid because kids can vary. You see a lot of like young teens. And do you feel like some of the 13, 14-year-olds that because at 13, you can have a social media page on most sites.
So my first thought, to be honest, because that's a tough question. I think that is a question that could vary amongst families. But my first inclination is really asking yourself, is your child, is your teenager emotionally mature enough to make that decision? So they have the insight, they have the judgment to say yes or no, that they are able to let you know that they feel comfortable. So I think too, every parent needs to assess and evaluate whether or not their kid is emotionally mature enough to let you know whether or not, yes, I like that photo. No, I don't feel comfortable you posting graduation photos of me. I don't want those on the internet.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I don't mind you posting this photo of my art, but nothing on our family vacation. So for a child to make that judgment, they have to have the maturity and the insight to understand and separate that, right?
Yeah.
To understand what they want on social media and what they do not want. And they have to understand the boundaries of that. So when you say like, well, what's the age, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm kind of fumbling with that answer is because like most adults even struggle with that. Most adults even struggle with having those boundaries and understanding what's appropriate to post and what's not appropriate to post.
Right. And when I think about my family, I don't know that I will want to even be asking them. Well, first of all, I'm not active personally on social media, so there is no profile for me to share them to. I'm not sharing them to our podcast Instagram profile. It's just not happening. So there will be no opportunity for them to be shared on social media within our family. And that's a boundary that I've set, and I feel really good about that. I'm not getting gratification from posting myself online, aside from for our business. But personally, I'm not relying on the gratification from a social media post. So they're seeing me gain all my gratification and all my self-esteem from my in-person relationships, from our friendships and within our family. And that's what I want to model for them.
Yeah. And then my next question is maybe we could talk about that now or later in the episode, is how do we help teenagers get that sense of gratification? How do we help teenagers to feel a sense of belonging and confidence with not having to post pictures online, but maybe keeping their photos, encouraging photos. Photos actually are such a great, piece for memories. They can be art. They could be such a great way of expression. But how do we do it in a way that you're getting a healthy sense of gratification and build a sense of self-esteem?
And I think briefly, like encouraging your teenagers in-person relationships, right? So encouraging them to spend time with their friends in person. Even if you need to come up with ideas for them, like think back to what we were doing in high school, going to a movie, going to the miniature golf course. Like we were finding activities to do because we had no opportunity besides talking on the landline back and forth, which was fun too. But we would pass notes in class. Like there's so many other cool ways to connect that don't revolve around a social media site and sharing all your private information on there with other people and tech companies and all of those things. So maintaining your privacy while spending time with other kids.
Absolutely. And one of the other ideas that just came to mind too is I kind of think back is, if you're with your teenager and they're with their friends, like bust out the camera and take a picture of them. And then, you know what, develop those photos, and make a cool collage in their room, or even like, buy them a Polaroid and have them go, around with the Polaroid. There's so many super cool Polaroids that like literally will like print out right away. Where one, that's such a cool gift you can give your friend right away. Like take some cool photos and then give them a Polaroid they can take home. And I'm sure like I remember having like a little Polaroid in my car, of my friends, like right there on the dash. And I think utilizing that way of expression, like kind of getting back to the basics on, if it's a scrapbook, or if it's like where they could actually, make a book online and print it out. And then two is like, I don't know. I kind of even think back, like if I had a fun time with my friends, if we went to a concert or maybe we went to the fair and we took like some really cool photos, like how cool would that be to get it framed and then give it to my friend and say like, hey, like you're such a close friend to me, and you're so meaningful to me. Like here's a gift. Like how thoughtful is that? Instead of posting it on social media where, it's going to be seen for what's the scene, like
hours,
5 minutes.
I know.
Like like let's be real, like 5 minutes, you like it and then you're done with it. It's over. On to the next, like, filtered, cropped, beautiful picture that will be looked at for 5 minutes. But instead you're framing it, and guess what? They get to put it in their room or put it somewhere special that they can look at.
So let's go through some more tips and recommendations on how to like cultivate those in-person relationships and not prioritize the online relationships as much at the end, because I have a hard transition to make here. I want to talk about the last risk around sharing your kids on social media, and that is the topic of child pornography. So there's no way around it. This is happening. Pedophiles are stealing photos of kids and they're lifting them from parents' social media pages. They're either editing them or not, and then placing them on child sexual abuse sites, pedophile photo sharing galleries, and highly sexualized child modeling sites. So it's difficult to think about this. It's difficult to talk about this, but let me share some stats.
It is difficult to talk about this because it's difficult to imagine if this happened to your child. I mean, even just you saying it, like my stomach drops. I don't feel good.
In 2019, almost 70 million images of child abuse were reported to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The vast majority of these were circulated on social media, in particular on Facebook. So child sex abuse content is exploding online. The monthly reports of child sex material on social media has doubled in just 1 year. And even the NIH is reporting that one of the dangers of sharenting, oversharing your children online, is that the child's images can be used on child pornography websites. One stat you really need to pay attention to is that half of photos shared by child sexual abusers were first posted on social media by parents.
Whoa. Wow. Can you say, I think we need to say that again, and we need to really hone this down.
So
that half
of all of the photos of all of the photos that are being shared by child sexual abusers, half of them are taken from your photos that you're posting, all you parents. Half of them were taken from you. Those are all children of ours.
We don't get any notification, guys. We don't get any notification that someone has screenshotted the photo, that someone has saved the photo, right? And utilizing that on another platform. We don't get any notification.
So your child could be on a sexual predator site and you would never know.
Probably.
So let's talk about Instagram. There was recently an investigation on Instagram, and it was found that Instagram was actually recommending algorithms that promoted accounts sharing sexual abuse content. So these sexual abusers know how to hide in plain sight. And so much so that Instagram was promoting them within the algorithm. So within these findings, this investigator said, pedophiles on Instagram are open about their interests. They use hashtags such as hashtag preteen sex, hashtag pedo, whore to advertise and find child sex material. And Meta has struggled to suppress the discovery of pedophilic materials due to failing to oversee keywords and other design features that promote content discovery of illicit and illegal material. So the tech companies are not doing a good job of removing this type of material from their site.
My question to that is why?
It's possible.
Why not?
It's possible. Man up. Like, get the staff you need to be monitoring this, or don't offer this product to us. It's not safe.
I mean, is it that? Like, that could be one issue. I mean, that could be one issue is what? They don't have the manpower. They don't have the manpower to block those or cut up, like get them off Instagram. Like,
it's a highly profitable platform. If they need to hire 1 million people to monitor it and remove these people from the site, I'm okay with that. Cut into your profit. Like, if it's not safe, then don't provide it to us.
It is so mind-blowing to me that these are big, huge, like billions of dollars companies. And that's probably the excuse they have for us is they don't have the manpower.
You own the platform. You can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Staff up. If that's the reason.
There's a part of me that I don't think that's the full picture, and I don't know why. Mm-hmm. And children should be the forefront of our thoughts, mm-hmm. and we need to do whatever it takes to protect and provide safety. And especially when you have a platform that is incredibly enticing, that looks great and really friendly and warm, and like, post all your pictures here, and mm-hmm. this is so wonderful. And so it makes this illusion that it's so family oriented, but the algorithm goes towards, like, in favor of pedophiles.
And I know there are benefits to social media platforms for families, right? But yeah. If there is any risk that my child's photo is going to be taken and put on a child pornography site, I will never sign up for that platform. And there's millions every year. Your children's photos are getting stolen and put on pornography sites. Do we not understand this? Like, we're still doing it. It drives me crazy.
And again, like, it goes back to, we're not getting notified. Instagram, who knows? Instagram, Facebook, they have all those metrics. They have all that data, mm-hmm. but we're not getting told. We're not getting notified them. Uh-huh. It's not coming to light.
They're not going to share that with us.
They're not going to share it. They're not going to share it. Why? Why do you think they're not going to share it?
Because then we would log off. Like, we wouldn't post our kids, and they need us to post our kids, because guess what? Kids get a ton of engagement. Like, how about we flip the script?
Exactly.
So let me share a real story about this happening to a mom in Utah. Her name is Brittany Champagne, and she has 2 daughters, 8 and 9, and an infant son. She was regularly posting her children online to her private Instagram account. And she one day was scrolling through Instagram to find people she might know, that section. And she found a profile that had her daughter's picture as the profile photo. So this user had taken a bunch of Brittany's photos and created a new profile. And she saw some of the captions were hashtagged with child porn related terms. And I'll note that these pictures weren't racy. Like, she didn't post her kids in bathing suits or anything. They were pictures of her daughters wearing regular clothes, hanging on the couch. But she dug further and she found actual photos of her children on child pornography sites. Since then, she has had photos pulled down on over 20 porn sites, but there's still photos on other sites that she cannot find a way to get down. Obviously, Brittany has discontinued posting photos of her children online. I have one other story. Go ahead.
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay, so one more story about this. Ashley Williams lives in Phoenix. She would regularly post her 9-year-old daughter on social media. She had a close male friend that she knew since high school. They were still really good friends. They saw each other regularly, and they were connected online. She found out that her male friend had downloaded over 80 photos of her daughter and posted them to a Russian pornography site. He lied on the porn site, said that he was the girl's father and that he was molesting her. And other fathers were trading photos with him on this site. This man went to trial for this and did not go to jail. He got sentenced to 10 years of probation.
Wow. These are really hard stories. Like, I'm just like looking at my face on this as we record, and I'm just like, these are hard stories to listen to.
Yep.
Makes my stomach like really queasy.
Yep.
And it's just such a rude awakening. And it's something that is just, Nicki, it's not talked about. Like, no one talks about this. And even these headlines, they should be like, this is what the news should be splashing all over, you know, all over the headlines and everything. And it's not.
The stories are there if you look hard enough.
If you look hard enough, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that sad? Isn't that sad?
It's
sorry,
so disappointing.
Like,
yeah. And people don't want to hear it because they're too addicted to their social media platforms and getting too much dopamine off of posting their kids that they don't want to stop doing it. It doesn't work for them.
I think that also leads to a really big question, and even a question that I asked myself almost a year ago. And I say it like, I've been sober off of like posting my kids a year ago, right?
Yeah. I got 3 years.
That's a great job.
Thank you.
Congratulations. But one of the things I asked myself was, why? Like, what am I getting out of posting my kids on social media?
Mm-hmm.
And just what you said is like the dopamine hit and feeling good, but like maybe people noticing me, maybe people noticing, you know, and especially during the hard time of having newborns, and I had my kids pretty close together. And looking for a way out, looking for a way out, as in like finding some sort of like quick dopamine hit, right? You know, because when you're in the throes of it, of parenting and all of that, sometimes just posting a really cute picture might be like, you know, could give that hit of like, oh, okay, wow, if it looks good, then maybe I am doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
And I had to really sit back and ask myself why. And I think that's such a great question to really sit back and really think to yourself, parents, why are you posting pictures of your kids online? Most of the people online, are they your really close friends? Like, are they your family? Like, do you still want, like, you know, high school friends to know, or you're all these coworkers to see pictures of your family? Like, my thought is like, if you ain't on the Christmas list on getting my Christmas card, then you probably shouldn't be seeing pictures of my family, right?
Right.
So
right.
I think I think we need to start there. We need to ask ourselves why. What's in it for us as parents to be posting pictures of our kids online?
And what's in it for the kid?
And that's that. Yes.
Nothing. Okay.
Absolutely
so post
nothing.
Pictures of your own face all you want. Okay. But keep your kids out of it. Like, don't use your kids for your own dopamine hit. Like,
I think oh, for sure. And this is a fired up episode. Like, I feel like this episode's this range of a roller coaster of emotions, but your kid gets nothing out of it. And if anything, it only leads to a trail of photos where they will have to sift through later on in life and ask, why did you post those? What was the purpose of you posting those? Or they might ask, like, why was this digital identity already laid out for me? I didn't have a choice in that.
Right. Or
they're wondering, hey, I'm embarrassed. Now these emotions are coming up later on, right?
Yeah.
And now tech companies have all these baby pictures and kid photos of them that they chose, that they had no choice in the matter.
Like, all I want is to grow older and have a real close relationship with my kids, be involved with my grandkids. And do I want to do anything to risk that? Do I want to break my kids' trust and potentially that one day they'll look back and be like, why the hell did you share all that about me, Mom? Like, I don't want to, that's not okay with me. There's nothing more important than keeping my trust strong between me and my kids.
I think too is, working with a lot of teens, over 100 teens that I've worked with is, you get to kids that are really confused, where their parents are posting all these happy-go-lucky pictures, and they're sitting in my office like, I'm really disconnected from my parent. I feel really angry towards them. I feel really hurt. And what it's showing online is not a consistent, not an accurate picture of what's really happening. And it's really confusing for teenagers. It's also like kind of a little bit of a, what's the word? Like almost like a tease. Like, wait a second, like online, it looks like we're good, but in reality, we are not.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of message is that sending to your kid? And I think another huge tip and something to really think about, parents, is building connection and building the moments, those picture moments, in person. What can you do to do that in person? Mm-hmm. It does not have to be a post online on a social media for everyone else to see. Mm-hmm. It matters more when you take a picture on your phone and you show it to your kid and you're like, this is such a beautiful photo of you.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this photo of you. You look so great. And we had such an awesome time together. And it was one of the best moments. Or you print that photo out and you put it in your room. They come in and they're like, hey, you have a photo of me. And you're like, I can't, I would love to see this photo every single day of you.
And I would say too, everything doesn't always have to be a photo moment. Like this morning, the sky, correct, my daughter and I were up early, the sun was rising. It was completely pink in the sky. And I said, let's run outside. And we ran out front. And I had a thought like, oh, I should grab my phone and take a picture of her with the sky in the background. I'm like, why? Like, we're standing here in the front yard at 6 a.m. watching this beautiful sunrise. And let's just like take a breath together. And it was so nice. So like, we don't always have to reach for our phones every single moment, and that teaches our kids like that. Teach your kids like these face-to-face connections, these face-to-face moments without electronics are more important than having your phone capture the moment.
I think, yeah. And my parents were like that too. They didn't take a lot of pictures. And I think they were very much in the present moment and wanting to experience the moment in the present. And I think we need to find the balance in that.
Yeah.
We need to find the balance where there are some really great moments for pictures and there's some really great moments of being in the moment and don't interrupt it.
Right.
You don't need to interrupt it by bringing out your phone and being like, wouldn't this be such a great picture?
Yeah.
To not interrupt it by that, by just enjoying it and knowing that it's a picture in your head,
right?
That you're
it's a
not
memory
get rid
that
of.
Only you two or you, whoever's involved, gets to take with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to talk about. I want to transition to what the tech executives are doing with their kids on social media. So many of the tech executives who work for Meta and X, Twitter, etc., either limit their own kids' social media time, don't post them on social media, or even raise them tech-free, which I think is very interesting. Mark Zuckerberg, for example, hides the faces of his children in his posts. Apple co-founder Steve Jobs puts strong limits on technology use in his own home. They do not use phones before 14 years old. One Facebook executive, Chamath Palihapitiya, talked about his child's social media use bluntly. He says that he feels tremendous guilt about helping to build this social media network and that his children, quote, aren't allowed to use that shit. The tech executives, like, they know too much. They know how bad it is for our children to be shared online, and they're largely not doing it. There's an article.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting, people? Like that, if the major tech companies or the Facebook and everyone that you just discussed there, like Jobs, Apple, right?
Yeah. The Apple executives, the Facebook executives, they're largely not posting their kids online. And one article,
why is that?
Because they know it's dangerous. They know.
Yes.
And this is so a Fast Company article has this title: Tech execs protect their kids from their own products, but not yours. Like, what the hell?
Yes.
Is it not obvious to us? Like, they know more than any of us how dangerous these platforms are.
Exactly.
They have the insider info, and they are choosing not to post their kids.
That is the pivotal point right there, is they have the insider information. And I think that's what's making our podcast so incredible and amazing, is that we're bringing this stuff to light. These big platforms are holding on to this information.
Mm-hmm.
Either they're not allowed to discuss it, or it's very few and between,
right.
Or whatnot. And I think that's what makes why we started. I think that's why we started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission is so that we talk about these conversations that need to be had, that parents, that we can help parents become more aware and understand, make these connections and go, yeah, it might sound dramatic, but until it happens to your kid, it isn't dramatic anymore. It's scary.
Right.
And that's why these executives aren't having their kids on social media, or they're waiting until they're incredibly emotional, mature enough to manage it and handle it.
Yeah. So let's ask the question. So if you look at all this information and you decide that you're not going to post your kids online, it may be a little tough because this is new, right? We've been posting our kids online for nearly 20 years without questioning it. And what I found is that I stopped posting my kids online, and I had to communicate it to other people, because other people would take pictures of my kids and then share them. And I had to explain why. And it's confusing to people. So I think when it comes to family members and friends sharing pictures of your children, like, everybody needs to defer to the parents and follow the parents' lead. So if the parents of the child are choosing not to post their kids, then family members should be asking them at least, like, hey, I see that you're not sharing pictures of your kid. Can I share pictures of your kid? Or are you not comfortable with that? And it's really like, I think people can take it really personal. I know, there's a topic that they've labeled grand sharenting, when grandparents are kind of oversharing the kids. And so this is not just a message for parents, it's a message that you may need to communicate with the grandparents as well. And parents should be comfortable. Parents need to start getting comfortable explaining the privacy and the safety concerns, and be specific about what they're comfortable sharing with their kids. Maybe share this podcast episode with them, like send it to them and let them make their own decision, or send this to them and then have a conversation about it together.
Yeah. I think you touched on a couple good points. There is parents, like, one, start having a conversation about it. Two is start looking into some research about this. Instead of having like this mind frame where I came from this too, instead of having that mind frame of, oh, it won't happen to me, like, oh, that's so far fetched, like, actually start looking into the research about it. Start digging into things and looking at it and researching it, right? And then the other thing, talk about it with your friends, like, bring up this conversation. And then the other thing is also, if you're a parent and you're posting pictures of your kids with their friends, always ask.
Yeah.
Just ask your kid's friend's parent, hey, is this okay if I were to post this picture?
Yep.
Or don't post it and just send it to them. Send it via message.
Right.
Message them. I've had several, my kids in grade school, and I've had several moms send me pictures via text of my kid. And I appreciate that so much. When they send it to me personally, then if I were to find that photo on social media, I would not be okay with that.
Yeah, me either. And so I think one of my goals with this conversation is to equip parents to be able to make a decision on this and speak about it intelligently to their peers and their, the grandparents of their kids, because it can feel overwhelming to just start from scratch and research this topic and then have a decision made, And so listen to this episode, go to our Instagram. We're sharing tons of actual research. We're not trying to just convince you of something that's not real here. I want to share the real data of what is happening to equip parents to make the best decision possible for their kids, whatever that decision may be. As I was researching this subject, I came across a ton of articles about the legal implications of sharing your children online. So many actually believe that sharing images of your child is not a parental right. And in some countries like France, there's a privacy bill going to the Senate that protects children's rights to their own images. So this legislation adds protecting children's privacy among parents' legal duties. So both parents would be jointly responsible for the child's image rights. So basically, in extreme cases, parents can lose their parental authority over a kid's image rights if the dissemination of the child's image seriously affects their dignity or moral integrity.
Wow.
There are examples also in Austria and Italy of minors who have even taken legal action against their parents for sharing too much of their lives online. So super interesting things happening all over the world around this topic, and a super good time to reflect on it. So let's talk through a few recommendations. So we already mentioned several within the episode, but I want to recommend a few books on the topic of sharenting. So there's one called Sharenthood by Leah Plunkett. There's another called Are Your Kids Naked Online by Chris and Lisa Good. There is one called Growing Up Shared by Stacy Steinberg. Growing Up Shared by Stacy Steinberg. And then one other called Growing Up Public by Devorah Heitner. That one's coming out, I think this week. I ordered that book. I'm excited to read it. So arm yourself with the information, right? See what you take to listen to this podcast. Or you've already listened to this podcast. Great job. But learn on your own, order a couple books, read them on Kindle, research some articles online, do your research and make the best decision for you and your family. Now, one thing that I like to talk about too is just because I'm not sharing my kids on social media or myself doesn't mean that I can't share with my loved ones. So I use shared albums on my iPhone, and I give access to family members to certain albums, and I post photos to them almost every day sometimes of my kids and highlights of their life. So just for my family and who I get to choose. And it's not in possession now of any of the tech companies. It is in Apple's cloud, so that's something. But for me, the risk is a lot less there than it is with posting on social media.
Yeah, I do. I have two family photo walls, one for my husband's side and one for my side.
Mm-hmm. On your wall at home? Actually,
in the hallway.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, in the hallway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I utilize those for some really awesome photos. And then I also made a really cool, it's a picture frame with some chicken wire in the middle, and we use some clothespins. So then my boys get to pick what photos they really like, and I get to print those out, and we get to have a collage at home where they get to see those photos every day, and we get to talk about them and have conversations oh, I'd love to go back to that place, or that was so much fun. Do you remember that? I love that photo. So I think it's also just a great connecting moment where they get to pick the pictures, and then it's in a place where we always get together in the kitchen. And we get to look at those photos too.
I love that.
It's a great connecting piece as well.
So I use an app called Chatbooks, and I love it. It connects to your phone, so you can easily create photo albums to print. And so I have one for every year of my child's life. There's a lot of them. They're adding up. But they're somewhat, they're inexpensive and easy to add to from your phone's album. So I highly recommend that. If you still feel strongly about posting your children, there's a few questions I want you to ask yourself before you post. Number 1, why are you sharing it? Number 2, would you want someone else to share that about you? Number 3, could your child be embarrassed by it now or in the future? 4, is there anyone in the world who shouldn't see this about your child now or in the future? And last one, Is this something you want to be part of your child's digital footprint forever? Mm-hmm. So if you can say yes to those 5 questions, then I think that go ahead and post it, if that's your decision. I want to just end with, for me, like, it's our job as parents to model online safety and protect our children. So when it comes to posting kids on social media, the choice is easy for me. I will not post my children online. I do encourage you to do the same, but I want you to have the backing and have the understanding on why it's risky, and be able to communicate that to people in your life.